There are numerous questions you need to ask yourself before you open a law office. First, should you write a business plan? The answer to that question is absolutely. 2, what type of financial questions, what type of financial obligations are you going to address and are you going to be faced with when opening a law office? 3, what type of marketing avenues are you going to explore? Are you going to go online or are you going to look for the more traditional route? 4, where would you set up your law office? Do you want it close to the court? Do you want something that's like a virtual office? 5, how do you best deal with your clients efficiently in terms of both technology and otherwise? 6, are you going to get malpractice insurance? And if so, how much is that going to cost you? Finally, you need to address a timeline for opening your office as well as the goals that you want to achieve in your office. What are the key elements of drafting your business plan? First, you need to assign tasks and goals related to holding yourself and your business partner accountable for actually drafting the business plan. This is a good way to determine whether you and your prospective partner are going to be a good match. The issues that you should address inside that business plan are as follows. A mission statement. What is it that your firm stands for and what are the goals you're trying to accomplish? 2, who's going to draft your partnership agreement if in fact you have a partner? You need to make sure that that's completed and everyone has a total understanding of the rights and obligations related to both income and liabilities. 3, what are your financial projections? Make sure that you and your partner both have a realistic understanding of what the financials are going to look like, as opposed to just going in blindly. Because if one person doesn't have enough resources to be able to support their family or their financial situation, you may end up with a problem. 4, what's your marketing plan? How are you going to do that? We're going to discuss that later on this video. 5, how are you going to set up your law office? What's the best location? Are you going to be near the court? Are you going to have a virtual office? Are you going to have both? What's the best way to do that, given the type of clients you're looking for? Finally, how can you best use and utilize the technology that's available to lawyers in this day and age? Make sure you review the contents of all of your business plan before you and your partner sign off on it to make sure that it's tightened up and ready to go. One of the most important things that you need to consider when you're opening a law office is the financial aspects of opening a law office. How much is it going to cost to start up your law office? That's called capitalization expenses. How much do you need? Do you need $15,000? Do you need $50,000? That depends on the type of cases that you have, whether you're forwarding the expenses and it's basically a contingency type case, or if you're working on an hourly basis. There are several resources that you can look to for small business loans, like banks. The government has SBA loans. Your family may see that as an investment that they could give you. You may have savings that have been set aside, or you could try some of using your own credit. In terms of your revenue and expenses, you really need to try to forecast the amount of money that you believe you can make versus the expenses. And obviously you want to make more money than you spend. You need to be realistic with the outcome and the timeline in which you're going to make that money, because keep in mind, you obviously have to pay your personal expenses as well. In terms of the office area and where you're going to set up your office, consider the type of clientele that you have. If you have elderly clientele who get lost if there's lots of one-way streets, don't move downtown into a very difficult area to find. Move somewhere that's a little easier accessible. If you do not have clients that are coming to the office very often, then try to find something that's affordable that works for you. In terms of who you office with, I would seriously consider trying to find officing with people that can be a source of referrals for you, whether or not those are attorneys or those are financial advisors or otherwise. Make sure you also bone up on all the issues related to accounting for IOLTA accounts. If you're holding money in trust for clients, you need to make sure that you have an accurate accounting system, that you understand the rules, that you find a banker that is familiar with IOLTA accounts, setting up IOLTA accounts, and managing IOLTA accounts. Finally, you need to make sure you have a process for yourself and your staff when they're processing payments and receiving money on your behalf. You may not be able to oversee all of the payments, so you need someone that's reliable and understands what the process is to get that done correctly. Marketing considerations. There's the bare essentials, there's the more sophisticated type tools. Bare Essentials includes a business card. You absolutely have to have a business card in order for your clients or potential referrals to take you seriously. Get something online, something like Vistaprint or GotPrint. They provide very high quality cards at a relatively reasonable price. Second, put together some flyers that explain the services that you provide so that either potential clients can take that with them after an initial meeting, or you can hand out at any sort of event that potential referrals would be able to take that information. You have to have an online presence in this day and age with the internet. First, make sure that you can register yourself on Google Maps. Make sure you have a presence on LinkedIn, Avo, especially if you're an attorney, Yelp, any of the online presence that you can get any information out related to the type of practice that you specialize in or that you practice in is extremely important. Make sure you also work to create a referral system. This includes CPAs, financial advisors, insurance agents, anyone who has access to a large number of individuals that may need your services. Make sure you have some sort of a discussion with them about them referring potential clients to you. In terms of more sophisticated tools, your website needs to be robust. There needs to be lots of content. There needs to be specific content related to your area of practice, so that the user can learn the information related to your area of practice and why you would be the best attorney for them to hire during their litigation. You need to probably hire a consultant to do some search engine optimization. You may want to consider developing a blog on your website and actively managing the blog, as well as possibly doing videos to post on your website so that your users know that you know what you're talking about. Another aspect of that is pay-per-click advertising. Depending on whether or not it's cost prohibitive, you may want to engage in that to get your website more hits, ranking higher on the organic searches. Finally, in terms of TV and radio ads, my experience is that they're extraordinarily expensive and the contracts are for long duration. If you can afford it, probably a good idea, but if it's your very first year out, not something that I would consider in the beginning. Lastly, branding your name and your reputation. Your reputation is going to precede you wherever you go. If you involve yourself with high quality firms, cases, persons, the lawyer referral service, or your local bar association, people will definitely respect you and are more willing to give you cases and referrals. The first thing you do when you set up your law office is to make sure that you have a client conflict check system. If you don't do this, you're possibly running into civil liability and disgorgement of fees. Many attorneys use very simple programs like a Word document or an Excel document or even paper note cards. My position is that you need something that's far more robust, far more updated in terms of technology. I've done my own research. I think that probably one of the best conflict check management systems out there is www.clientconflictcheck.com. It's a very reasonable price, and you can put specific information related to your law firm and the users in your law firm to make sure that you have an adequate conflict check management system. Secondly, you need to put together and create templates for everything that you're going to have in your law office. This includes pleadings, faxes, retainer agreements, letters that you send to potential clients who don't hire you to ensure that they understand that you do not represent them in court, enclosure letters, timesheet, everything else that is under the sun that you can think about related to your case and to your law practice. You need to have those templates because it'll chew up all of your time when you're supposed to be practicing law and writing down your time. Do that in advance of opening a law office. Finally, you absolutely have to have a very strong calendaring system, and you really ought to keep it in duplicate. Have both an online calendaring system as well as a hard calendaring system. You can either use Microsoft Outlook, or you can contact and look at some of the other law practice management systems that are out there that you can purchase. Keep in mind, though, that they're very expensive. Physically setting up your law office. A few pointers. Number one, the aesthetics of your office really should match the type of clientele that you have. If you don't have clientele that are coming into the office, there's no reason to spend a lot of money on furniture and furnishings and making the office look extraordinarily good. If your business is selling clients that come into your office, then I would suggest that you spend a little bit of money on making sure that your office is comfortable, that it fits your personality and the way that you practice law, and that it's eye-appealing to the potential clients that come in. In terms of a phone system, for my money, the voice over IP is probably your best bet. It's pretty cheap, and it's very cheap to set up, and the expense per phone and per line is usually about $30 per phone. In terms of desks and storage cabinets, I would suggest that you consider trying to save as much money as you can on those things. Try to find them used. Don't spend money on new items because they're going to get beaten down over time, and your client is not necessarily going to see you at your desk every time he or she comes in. In terms of the technology aspect of it, a couple things. One, how are you going to deal with the copy machine? Every attorney needs a copy machine in order to be able to put together all of the pleadings and documents in your case, as well as scanning orders, correspondence, any of the information related to a case. That's an absolute must. Two is the computer equipment and the networking. I really suggest that you hire an expert to do that, to make sure that all of the information that you store on your hard drive is secure, that it's remotely accessible, and that it's something that you have trust in and that you're not going to lose all your data. If you do, you're really going to have a difficult time. So make sure you hire somebody who's really good and knows what they're doing. Finally, in terms of legal research and making things easier for you, I really recommend that you get some form of a legal research tool, whether it's Westlaw, Nexus, or any of the other competitors out there. You really need to make sure that you're up on the law and that you have access to all the information you need in order to be able to best represent your client. Finally, I really recommend you get an attorney service if you're in the litigation side of things. That saves you a lot of time running down to court to go file things, or if you have a fax filing type situation, then you may not need as much of an attorney service for that, but I really recommend that you do that because outsourcing that is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of money and effort when you're doing your regular cases. How do you efficiently deal with clients? I hear that question all the time. Number one, you need to maximize your efficiency with technology. Obviously, you need a telephone to be able to communicate with your clients, but how can you best communicate with clients? By email. Is there a way that you can send drafts of proposed correspondence or pleadings through email so that they don't necessarily have to come into the office to review everything, or that you don't have to mail it to them? Additionally, if you have clients who are not necessarily within the town or within the county that you work in, you may want to consider getting a webcam. It goes a long way to be able to meet with a client over the webcam where they can see your face, especially if you're trying to retain them as a new client. It goes a long way in terms of showing your interest in their case, and it may go the extra mile so that they'll hire you. Voicemail to email services, believe it or not, are also available. Someone can leave you a voicemail on your telephone, and that can then be typed out automatically and sent to you either in the email format or another format. I would highly recommend that you go through that and get that, because then you have a written correspondence of what it is that was actually said to you. You may also want to consider getting reception services where after hours a receptionist can take a phone call and then send the information to you related to it. That is very helpful, especially because it makes your clients feel like you're always around and available even when you're at home and hopefully relaxing. Social media, I must caution you on the use of social media. Social media essentially can be interpreted as advertising. You may also, depending on what you're revealing related to cases, may be breaching the attorney-client relationship. I would very seriously caution you related to sending out tweets or personal information or even information about a case on social media. Finally, in terms of your setup, you need to make sure that you secure all of the data that's loaded up onto your system. Make sure it's encrypted, make sure it's backed up off-site in case there's a fire or something happens to your computer system and it gets corrupted. You need to make sure you have a backup system that's secure and able to be accessed in the event that something happens. If you're opening a new law office or you're transitioning into a new office, you need to make sure that you have malpractice insurance. Can't recommend this enough. The cost is actually probably cheaper than what you expect. Believe it or not, if you're a newer attorney, because you don't have as many cases in your history of practicing, your malpractice insurance is actually going to be less, which is kind of counterintuitive. Make sure that when you're filling out your application for your malpractice insurance that you answer honestly, that you make sure that you have a client conflict check system in place, as we discussed earlier, that you have a calendaring system that's a dual calendaring system, because that will allow you hopefully to get a discount on your expenses, and make sure that you don't provide any false information. There are many examples in malpractice cases where an attorney falsified or indicated that he or she had a practice management system or a conflict check management system and didn't, and when they were sued, the insurance company refused to cover the claim. And when that happens, you end up being personally liable, which is not a good situation. Make sure that you're familiar with having at least your retainer agreements being ironclad, that you have mechanisms to get out of a case if you need to do so, if your client stops paying you, what the consequences and the circumstances are. Familiarize yourself with your state rules related to your liability in terms of the statute of limitations on when a client can sue you for your malpractice, if it ever occurs. And make sure that you consult with either the state or local bars related to the fee dispute rules and how that works. Some states have a mandatory fee dispute resolution program that you have to go through prior to filing a civil action against the client who's not paying. So make sure you familiarize yourself with that as well. All right, concerning goals and timelines, you really need to follow up with all those things. Specifically, what types of goals are you going to set for yourself? I would suggest you discuss profitability, which is a function of your income and your expenses, and set goals, short-term and long-term goals, 3 months, 6 months, quarterly, annually, 5 years, 10 years down the road. Make sure that you're able to identify those goals and that you try to stick to them. Also, you're going to want to consider when you want to hire an employee or a law clerk or support staff, because that may help your profitability and your bottom line. Consider figuring out what you need to determine whether or not you're going to hire a new employee. Finally, review those goals on an annual basis, especially in the beginning, to make sure that both parties, yourself and your business partner, if you have one, are carrying their weight. If your assumptions are wrong or you're just not meeting your goals, then you may want to revise those goals to make sure that you have a realistic check as to how you're going to do in this new business. From an accountability standpoint, you need to hold yourself accountable, and if you have a business partner or multiple partners, you need to make sure that they're holding themselves accountable. Make sure that they take this as seriously as you do, and if you want to be successful, you have to dedicate yourself. Have meetings related to your progress. Critically think and discuss openly with your business partner or yourself and critique what you're doing, how you're doing it, your efficiency, how you're treating your clients, and whether or not you're profitable. If not, why you're not profitable. When you do have support staff, make sure that you talk to them about their goals and timelines. Make sure you delegate to them properly and make sure that you're supervising them properly so that they understand when things are due and what you expect of them. Finally, push yourself, hold yourself accountable, hold your business partner accountable to succeed. Do your best, use your best efforts, and hopefully this will work out for you.